You have so much power with the information and inspiration that you have. You can sign up your family, your closest friends, your neighbors on your street, in your block, your colleagues in your office. These are simple things that you can do. What can we do together more broadly? Well, if you can look in the description of this video, you can sign up to volunteer with Vote Brussels, an initiative funded by the Brussels region. There are also campaigns funded by the Brussels region with Restless Brussels and Stand Up for Europe. You can also reach out to the Brussels Commissioner for Europe to use their materials. Some of you might be running as EU citizen candidates or be volunteering to help a specific political party. What can we all do together so that we are most effective with our time and energy from now until the 31st of July? Well, first, everyone is welcome to take action. You can choose to do a partisan action, which means that you are supporting a specific party or candidate, but you could also do nonpartisan action, like the Vote Brussels campaign. What you have to remember, whatever you're trying to do, is that there are elections that are high stakes, where people see that the party that's elected is going to radically change their life for good or for bad. And then there are low stakes election where it's harder for people to see the direct changes that are immediately going to happen based on their choice. Local elections tend to be more low stakes as an election. Also, unfortunately, international voters have to sign up 3 months before the election, which makes it much lower stakes, much harder to get all of the information. So for that reason, whatever type of campaign you're doing, you're going to want to try and reach international voters with some high information, meaning that they are generally interested in politics, they have voted before, maybe in their home country, they are interested in what's going on in their commune. So these are not people who are voting yet. These are not people who necessarily know a lot about Brussels politics, but these are people who will understand their power and their choices and get excited about this. But now, what are the next steps that you're going to have to do? First, you should look more specifically who among these potentially high information voters are you going to try to reach? Where are they? Where can you concentrate your actions to have the greatest impact? In this election, you might be able to take a focus on a particular area, and a big change in that small area can shock the system and wake up a lot of other democratic actors and the local and regional government that needs to be taking on their responsibility. So you might have to focus right now so that you can have a bigger impact in the future. You're also going to have to decide when you do your actions, because you don't want to exhaust everybody by starting too soon. You want to do your action when these elections are going to be the most clear for your potential voters. You're going to have to understand why they care to vote. So you're going to have to be doing focus groups, which just means going and talking and listening to ordinary people about what are the issues that they care about in their commune and what is the information that they're lacking. And then your role really is to step in with the how. You're going to figure out who and where and when you're going to be talking to specific voters. And you are going to be able to come with both the messenger and the message. And we're going to talk about how you can make that messenger and message the most powerful possible. So if you want to know more about what really works to do voter registration and get out the vote, I recommend this great simple book called Get Out the Vote by Green and Gerber, who have summarized all of the best international research on voter registration and voter turnout. A lot comes from the United States, where millions and millions are spent every year on voter registration, but these results have been replicated across Europe and also for international voters. And what they find is that certain actions are really very effective and others are not. So what's most effective in general? Person to person, informal conversation. You as a voter talking to other potential voters, preferably of the same background, about why their vote matters, what power they have, and then making a very short and simple ask. Elections are very simple. It's the easiest thing to do to sign up to vote in Belgium, but can I count on you to be a voter? So if you do that type of work, for example, going door to door, knocking on people's doors, or going and standing in a public space like a market, um, for every 15 people you talk to, you will probably convince one of them to register to vote. Okay? And these are the most effective tactics that you can do. You'll talk to 15 people, and a number of them might not be interested, they might not be positive, they might not want to talk to you, but out of those 15, you will have convinced one person to take an action. Now, there are some other actions that are not door to door that are just as effective. For example, when people individually text their friends, or if the government texts you with an official update with information, or your friend calls you, or your friend shares their own personal experience on social media, or sends you a personal message, that can be just as effective. So for every 15 of your friends that you write to, you will convince one of them to turn out to vote. So that is very effective. So what's not that effective is just printing out leaflets and distributing them. For every 200 voters who get a leaflet, that convinces about one of them to vote. Just sending out generic messages or generic materials or generic emails, they don't really tend to affect people a lot. If you can get your commune to send a direct letter to eligible voters, explaining to them how simple it is, encouraging them about the importance of the commune, well, that can help. I mean, for every about 300 people who receive a letter, that convinces about one of them to turn out to vote. You can maybe try and organize telephone calls. If you, again, are using people's own private numbers, again, that can work well if people are calling their friends. You can try and organize events yourself. The closer to election day, the better. That can have a little marginal impact. You can try and get attention on TV or on radio. Again, that can have a small boosting effect. So just to let you know, if a country like Belgium doesn't change its voter registration systems, we are going to be stuck with these very expensive, inefficient democratic methods that require a lot of effort. And so don't be discouraged. When you have 15 conversations, try and make them as short and positive as possible, because you are going to be making a change. And if you can find ways of contacting your friends through WhatsApp or social media, you're also going to have a great effect. All right, so what's the message that you should give to people? You got some of those key tips earlier. I talk to people as international voters. I don't call them non-Belgians because that's just an administrative term that doesn't correspond to how people feel. So they're international voters. It's important to tell them they are 1/3 of Brussels. Best use the percentage of their commune, like half in Ixelles, Saint-Gilles, or Schaerbeek, because so many internationals are surprised that we are Brussels, that Brussels is us. That makes them feel very empowered. Again, keep the message short and simple, but person to person. This is why I, as an international voter, am voting. This is why Brussels needs us. Ask them what issues they care about. Again, key message, signing up is so easy. I avoid the term voter registration because it makes people think of residence registration, which can be very complicated. Months of waiting, appointments, documents. So if you just say register as a voter, they might think, I don't want to go through that traumatic process again. That's why I say sign up to become a Brussels international voter. It's so easy. You just sign up online with It's Me or the e-card reader, if you have either of those, or you just mail this form, drop it off by the 31st of July. And the second key message, there are no risks, no problems, no sanctions for voting in Belgium or in your home country. So you have nothing to worry about. Everything is very flexible in practice. There's always a solution. You can vote by proxy if you're abroad or unavailable on election day. It's important to talk about voting by proxy because many international voters do not know this great innovation in the Belgian system. And again, there's always a solution. You can vote by proxy, and there's no need afterwards to re-register. It's easy to deregister afterwards, and that happens automatically if you move abroad. So those are just 3 short sentences, but you see how I've been able to make it really simple and short. Yeah. And then you can have a discussion about the issues that people care about. You can talk about the contribution and the ways that international voters can transform Brussels democracy, but always make sure that you end by saying, can I count on you to join the international community and vote? Have you figured out exactly the way you're going to register online or with the form? And if they need any extra information or they start raising some myths that you can clarify immediately, but end with this call to action. And if you meet someone who is registered, our immediate tendency to say, I don't need to talk to this person. My job is to register non-voters. So you just would move away. That is the wrong choice, because registered international voters are those high information voters. And so many of them live in a bubble and don't think about the power and connections that they have. So if you see someone who says, oh, I've already signed up to vote, thank them. It sounds so simple, but thank them. Say, thank you so much for leading the way. But if you want your voice to count, then you need to get your friends and your family to also sign up. So can you think of 10 people that you could sign up, share this information with? Maybe specific friends, family, maybe your neighbors. Let them talk about that for a sentence or two, because that will create a call for action in their mind and get them to realize, of course, if I want my vote to count, I also want to make sure that the people whose opinions I respect in my life are also joining me as part of Brussels democracy. So I've worked that out as a short 3-minute script. Yeah, if I were going to be talking to someone, I'd say, hi, I'm Thomas. I live here in Saint-Gilles, right around the corner, and I'm volunteering for a project in the Brussels region to reach out the international community in our neighborhood. Do you know how many international voters there are here in Brussels? Wait for them to speak. 300,000. We could be a third of all voters in the local elections on the 13th of October. And here in Saint-Gilles, we could be half of the voters. City councilors only get elected with a few hundred votes. Have you ever voted here in the local elections? If they say yes, thank you so much for leading the way. But if you want your voice to count, can you try and sign up your friends and your family right now? Right? So if they haven't voted, I say, well, the problem is most internationals like you haven't voted because you just didn't get the right information on how to sign up and why your voice matters. And I just want you to know that a lot could change this year in the elections. They're going to be extremely close. You can take an electoral test and see that there are so many parties to choose from on the issues that we care about. And actually, we have more powers at the local level in Belgium than anywhere else in Europe. You know, you can vote to improve your street, your neighborhood, your security, your services at City Hall, your quality of life. You know, for you, what's most important that you would like to see changing here in our commune? And then let that discussion happen. They might start raising issues, and you can again share the issues that you find most important. So even if they just say one or two things, what I say is exactly, you know, if everyone votes, then Brussels will actually become the most cosmopolitan democracy in the world, and politicians will have to be more responsive to citizens like you. So we'll all get one step closer to the commune that we want, right? All of a sudden, they can see their power. And then, look, we just want to make clear there's no need to worry about signing up, no risks, no problems, no sanctions in Belgium or abroad. For example, if you're on election day, you're traveling or unavailable, you can vote by proxy by just giving this form. Always nice to have a copy, giving this simple form to another voter and signing up to vote with a copy of the form. It's really the easiest thing that you'll do in Belgium. You can do it online. Do you have the It's Me on your phone or maybe the electronic card reader at home? It's great if you have a QR code so they directly scan that, and that can take them to the government registration page where they just click on the It's Me or the e-card reader. Well, if not, you can just mail or drop off this simple form at your commune. There's no need for any other documents or appointments or queues. And then you give them the form. You can even already give them an envelope that's pre-addressed with the commune's address, with the loi électorale mentioned, and tell them about the signing and return address on the back. So can I count on you to join the international community and sign up to vote? Will you be signing up online or mailing or dropping it off, right? So you get them to think about the next step that they're going to do. And then just right, you know, the deadline is the 31st of July. So just take a minute to do it now. And thank you for becoming a voter. So that's what I would do if I'd have 3 to 5 minutes. If you can set up a space where you've got a captive audience, maybe you teach a French or a Dutch class or English class. Maybe you work at an office and people meet together for lunch. Maybe you are going to be doing a big concert, right? And there's time before the concert starts for someone to step up. Or you are organizing a little festival with your community, or you're having a meeting of your local organization or a cultural group, or you're just inviting friends over for a drink or a tea. This is a great time to have a 15-minute conversation. So you can use the same type of script, but structure it more with questions for getting a lot of engagement. So asking people, have any of you ever voted here in any Belgian elections? That gets you to know how much people know already. It gets them to come up with some of the answers. You share why you've decided to vote in Belgium and why other internationals vote. Maybe people have already mentioned that when you ask that first question. And then again, say, well, we actually have more powers here at the local level in Belgium than anywhere else in Europe, right? So again, here are some of the issues that I care about. What are issues that are most important to you or to other international voters? And you can share what you find are the most convincing arguments about how international voters can transform Brussels. It might be the history of voting rights, that so many people have fought for us to have the voting rights, perhaps as women, perhaps as young people, perhaps as internationals. Again, where you live, you might be able to share with people, look, we're half the population, or, we as French citizens in this commune, we're 5,000. Gosh, we could have so many seats on the city council, right? And we can run as EU citizens. So there are ways of getting people to see that bigger picture. And then again, to have that conversation. What are the issues that people most care about? And just say, look, if you want to find out which parties agree with you, we have so many choices of national and local parties. Tell them about the electoral test by the RTBF, La Libre, or VRT, and they can always use Google Translate to take that test with a decent translation into another language if they need that. And make sure you end again by getting people to directly sign up with It's Me. If they have it on their phone, they should do it right there with you, or give them that form, give them that envelope, and ask if they have any questions. But make sure, again, you give them the tools directly that they need and thank them. And make sure to give people inspiration, right? This is not just about information. We here at Vote Brussels have developed quizzes that we'll be leading with that share a lot of this information about the power of the international community in fun ways. One of those tests is a Brussels personality test where we ask you a few questions. How long have you lived here? Where do you work? What's your family situation? And we basically tell people they are Brussels, right? Even if you've just been here for 1 year and you just came here for work and you're traveling all the time, well, you're just like Tintin. Brussels is your base and you're off having adventures around the world. Or you're settled here as a worker, well, you're just as Brussels as a Brussels sprout, You're the cool coppers who were growing Brussels sprouts here, right? I mean, Brussels has been made by hardworking people like you. Or you've lived here so long that you're like the Zinneke, right? You're like the mannequin piss or the Yannicka piss, right? You're really part of the city. You're here for Europe. You're a newcomer. You're a Eurostar. You love your job here. You're a Pluxellois enjoying Place Lux. You've been here so long. You're a Schumanican piss, right? You're here from your family. You're enjoying the good Brussels quality of life, the Bruxelles art nouveau. You're new to Brussels, but you're enjoying this Brussels art de vivre. Or you're here with your family, like me now. Well, you're just like a papa or your mama Smurf, and you've made Brussels your own little community. And if you've been here for so long, you're as old as the Lion of Waterloo, right? Just it allows people to start to identify with this city. The fact that we are Brussels, Brussels is us as this international capital. So it's always fun to give people some inspiration and make it a little bit of a game. Now, make sure you have that core message, practice it a few times. Don't worry if it doesn't go well the first few times. You need to have a good messenger. Having a good messenger is just as important as having a good message. And you are the best messenger because voters listen to people that they trust and they know. So you need to get all of your friends and family, your colleagues and your neighbors to sign up. If you do that, you have done more than your part. But you can also reach out further to people who live in your neighborhood, people who have the same nationality as you, people who speak the same language, people who work in the same broader field. So what can you do? Again, reach out to people at existing events or organizations. This is what we did in the 2018 Vote Brussels campaign. We had people doing lunch events at their office, going to festivals and events that happen in Brussels all of the time, targeted at their specific cultural community or their school or their friends. So go to existing events and organizations. If you organize your own event, that does take a lot of time and money and kind of gets you on the wrong focus. You focus on getting people in the room rather than getting people in the ballot box, right? So as much as possible, try and get an invitation so that if you've got 15 minutes, you've got a great speech. But if you also have 3 or 5 minutes, you can give the speech that I just gave. And reach voters where they are. In the 2018 Vote Brussels campaign, you can see where we did events in the European institutions. Those were highlighted in pink, but also in blue in a lot of offices and workplaces for where the vast majority of people were not Belgian citizens, but also, as I said, we went to local organizations, cultural festivals. One tip I would say is be aware that Brussels is the conference capital of the world, and we've got so many tourists, so many interns, so many visitors that, you know, some areas like the Grand Place or Place Luxembourg or the South Station will involve you meeting a lot of internationals, but who are not actually living here in Brussels. So really think about where people are. And for that, I recommend the Brussels Institute for Statistics, IPSA, has a great data set called the Monitoring des Quartiers. And there you can actually see, not just based on the commune, but individual neighborhoods where you have the largest concentration of different internationals. From here, you see the information on people from Western Europe, but you can get that data for people from Turkey, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, from other wealthy countries, even specifically French people. And you can also get that data from your specific commune. If you go on the website of SPF Intérieur, there's a section there for election statistics from 2018 for international voters. So I found that data in French by Statistique Électeur. And actually, you can get the data for your commune. You can see by every single nationality in your commune how many potential voters there were in 2018 and what percentage of them actually registered to vote. And while you're doing work in person, as I said, online can be just as effective, but if it's organic, if people are directly sharing with their friends themselves. Now, a lot of social media companies, unfortunately, right now are making it hard for even nonpartisan electoral initiatives like Vote Brussels to share information about voters' voting rights because they think it's political. So just resharing posts is not the solution. What's really best is for you to take what you're reading, put it in your own words, maybe a photo of yourself, maybe something funny, something surprising, a GIF, a photo, and share that. And directly message people. WhatsApp is the future. Write directly to your friends. They're going to be happy to hear from you. Send them a direct Facebook message or whatever platform that you use. And you can also reach out to influencers, people who have a lot of followers. And those might not be the people you think. You don't need to reach out to the large media. Think about how you get information in Brussels, what sources you use. And you might realize, oh, actually, I read, for example, the Brussels Times and the Bulletin, which are English-speaking media, or I listen to the Spanish radio in Brussels, or I read the Polish magazine, right? Get those multilingual media involved because that's where international Brussels will wake up to this message and realize that we're actually speaking directly to them. All right, so I wanted to end to give us an idea of what success looks like, because it's key that you volunteer with Vote Brussels or another initiative. And it's key that you spend your time with a good, simple message and you focus on where you can have the most impact as a messenger. But this work involves us going out and doing the hard work of democracy, especially when parties and government institutions are not playing their role. And I want you to have a realistic idea of what kind of success that we can have in doing this work. As I said, going door to door or writing directly to your friends, maybe you'll convince 1 in 15. So the more that we do messaging, the more that all of us are writing to our friends, the more that we're going to get those 15 people that you contacted. Slowly, all of them are going to be reached again and again and again, and they're going to realize this is important for our community. Everyone's doing this. And we create the kind of social pressure and the community vibe that makes these elections relevant for everyone. But still, we can't reach everything, especially just in one election. Democracy is a long, hard battle. So I wanted to give you some tips from research on work with international voters and mobile EU citizens for an idea of how we can be successful. So why do international voters end up voting? Well, first of all, international voters are shaped by how long they've stayed in a country and by how high the turnout rates are in the country that they live in, but also the country they come from, right? So here we are in Belgium, the land of voting, with some of the highest turnout in the world. And that does encourage some people to come out to vote, although they don't always hear the most encouraging messages from some of their Belgian friends who can't explain the institutional lasagna, and from some political parties that may or may not actually want to enlarge the electorate. But international voters are also influenced by, again, how likely is it for people to vote in local elections in their home countries? And as we know, local authorities in many countries around the world don't have a lot of power. So that makes it more likely that some people might not vote because they're, again, thinking of Belgian local elections like their home country local elections. Also, how long have they stayed in the country? If someone has only been here for just a few years, everything is very new for them. They don't know if they're going to settle here long term, so they're also less likely to stay. And so here I show you from 2018, overall in the Brussels region, what share of the electorate from different nationalities were signed up to vote for the 2018 local elections. So you see the highest groups where we had the highest shares of people signing up to vote, Germans and people from Guinea. Also people from Congo, Algeria, the Netherlands, the UK, and Ireland, right? And there it was still only 25 to 30% of people of that nationality who had signed up to vote, right? Okay, so 25, 30%, if all nationalities had the same experience of voting and were here the same period of time, we could use as a benchmark for success. Well, another main factor that shapes international voters' likelihood to vote are the administrative barriers. And as I mentioned, Belgium still imposes one of the earliest voter registration deadlines of all countries in the EU, and doesn't provide a lot of information proactively to every newcomer to register them directly at the city hall when they start as a resident. No. So there are a lot of administrative barriers in Belgium. Well, what about other EU countries that automatically register voters when they arrive and have proactive information campaigns? What are the electoral turnouts there at local level for mobile EU citizens and citizens from other countries? Here I share the data for you from Denmark and Sweden, which again have automatic voter registration and a lot of proactive information policies. And what you see there is, even though most national citizens end up turning out to vote, again, only around a third of internationals or a third of EU citizens end up voting in those local elections. Even international voters that come from neighboring Nordic countries like Finland and Norway. So again, we see a benchmark of success around 30, 35% if there were no administrative barriers in Belgium. And still, though, don't be discouraged, because there's a lot that we can't change. We can't change where people are coming from, where they are in their life and their mobility experience, and where Belgium currently is in its democratic reform. But our campaigns do matter. In the 2018 local elections, the Vote Brussels campaign, working with the region and the communes, were able to double the voter registration rate from 8% to 17% in just 5 months, right? So actions matter. Emails from the commune, letters from the commune, those matter. Letters from the region, those matter. And work in public squares, in local offices, in people's homes really matters. So yes, the work that authorities do matter, but also the work that we do matter. And based on our research evaluation, the 2018 Vote Brussels campaign was itself directly responsible for around 8,000 to 9,000 voters. So you can have an impact. And we can see across the Brussels region that the communes that took more efforts did get higher voter registration rates, with the highest rates in, for example, Saint-Just, Saint-Gilles, and Watermal-Bois-Fort, where up to 26% of international voters had signed up to vote. So I think that if we would be so successful working together with the communes and the region in the 2024 elections, we could all do as well as Watermal-Bois-Fort, and we could have a voter registration rate of around 26%. If we continue to work on automatic voter information, maybe even a much later registration deadline, and more democratic reforms in the Brussels region that manages the local elections, we could end up getting those high registration rates of maybe 1/3. So this is a long process, but I hope that through our work, we realize the impact that we are going to have by working together. Make sure that you're volunteering with Vote Brussels or another initiative. Make sure you're coordinating together and sharing all of this information with everyone. And make sure that you're in this for the long fight. This is the way that we not only build a community by getting to know our neighbors and other committed citizens, but it's also the way that we're transforming the city and creating a future for our friends and family and for others